Efforts to craft a Canadian grocery code of conduct have reached a major milestone as Canada prepares to roll out a grocery rebate as well. The industry committee working on the grocery code was established in response to contentious fees being charged to suppliers by large grocery retailers. A proposed final version includes a process to resolve disputes and impose sanctions on systemic violators of the code. Meanwhile, a grocery rebate plan has been proposed in the Senate, which would likely see the bill receive royal assent by May 12th. The Cost of Living Relief Act number 3 passed its second reading in the Senate on Wednesday. But will these measures be enough to help inflation hit Canadians with their rising grocery bills? Well, joining us now to unpack these efforts is Dr. Sylvain Charlebois, a food expert and professor at Dalhousie University. Dr. Charlebois, welcome back to Forum Daily.
My pleasure.
So, sir, let's start with this grocery code of conduct, hoping to address these contentious fees being charged by grocers to suppliers. So what do we know about the stipulations in this latest proposed version of the code and whether they are enough to support suppliers in this situation?
Well, the code will be industry-led, so that's certainly a concern for processors. We've had some concerns with grocers. Grocers are quite powerful within the supply chain. They do impose fees at the last minute and change uh, terms, contractual terms, sometimes overnight. And so, obviously, it's been a concern for both processors and independent grocers who have much less power. We've seen many independent grocers disappear across the country, and giving fewer retail options to consumers. And when that happens, well, prices tend to go up. So obviously, you want a forceful code of conduct to make sure that prices don't go up as quickly as what we've seen in recent months.
And your concerns echo the concerns of other critics. Now, they're saying the scales may not be even when it comes to suppliers versus grocers. And some are also pointing to the language in this code. As you say, they may have stopped short on imposing fines on those who fail to adhere to the rules. So, can you tell us a little bit more about the consequences that grocers or suppliers may face under this code and whether it's enough?
Well, that's the issue about an industry-led code. I mean, the question is, would Walmart pay a fine if it is charge a fine? At the end of the day, my guess is probably going to be no, and that's a problem. So you really need a code to impose more discipline across the supply chain. Something that we're seeing right now in the United Kingdom, where they were looking at similar problems just a few years ago, and they've resolved many of them. Right now, practices have changed. Grocers are expecting vendors to fund and support financially uh, key strategic initiatives like building warehouses and support an e-commerce strategy. Those things weren't happening about a decade ago. So there is some abuse in the system. And that abuse is not necessarily seen or perceived by consumers, but it is impacting them indirectly.
From the sounds of it, there's still a lot of work to be done, Dr. Charlebois. Just about 2 minutes left here, so I really want to jump to this grocery rebate in Bill C-46. What exactly would it look like for Canadians and who would qualify?
Well, according to some numbers that we've looked at, 11 million people would qualify for this enhanced GST rebate. Let's call it what it is. They call it a grocery rebate to politicize the issue of food inflation, which is really the wrong thing to do. When you politicize food inflation, you come up with very short term solutions that don't really help Canadians over the long term. And so the grocery code of conduct is certainly one thing that needs to happen over the long term. We need more investments in ag and processing to increase capacity overall and become less vulnerable to currency fluctuations and what happens elsewhere around the world when it comes to climate change. Those are the things that will actually matter to Canadians over time. The grocery rebate will only help a few for maybe just a week or two, and that's about it.
Clearly, there seems to be a lot that needs to be done in the grocery sector, Dr. Charlebois. But for those who may be waiting for this grocery rebate, we mentioned that this bill might get a royal assent by May 12th. When can they expect to see something like the grocery rebate in their bank accounts?
It won't take long. I mean, it's probably going to be executed within a few weeks. So that's good news for people who need it. But my recommendation to Ottawa would be to start looking at long term solutions like food stamps, for example. similar to what we're seeing right now in the US. Basically, you give money only to be used at grocery stores. Right now, the money sent out to people, they can do whatever they want with it. It doesn't mean it will actually be helpful. And that's something we need to think about. And of course, with food stamps, you can actually direct spending and encourage people to buy local foods made in Canada. That's another thing that we should be thinking about.